Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Birmingham Bible Church's Winning Wednesday. This is the format that we use every Wednesday at 12 noon to let you know that you are a winner and just to help to create some wins in your life. And so, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for inviting friends to watch so that we can all learn together. And so, of course, we like to bring topics during this time for your life, for your living. And so on today, we're going to create some wins in our finances. And I'm excited about this topic. I'm excited about the speaker and what he's about to share with us. And so listen, make sure you tag 3 people in the comment section. Make sure you text 5 people. Make sure you share this broadcast so that we all can learn together and really get some information so that we can be better in our finances. And so all this month, we have tackled some great topics. We had Tanisha, she started us off on budgeting, and that's always a tough subject, telling your money where it needs to go. We had Alexandra come and talk about sexual assault awareness month because it is that month as well. And then we had Shanique talk about autism, being the mother of a child who is autistic, who's now in his 20s, enrolled at Jefferson State College and doing well. And so we had some great speakers on this month. And so today is no different. I'm excited that our friend Damian Carson has agreed to talk to us about investing. He is an experienced financial service professional. He is a leader that is driven in community and development initiatives. He's just always been open and available to us just on a personal level. Of course, he has led a lot of leadership roles in building corporate nonprofit settings. He's launched Money Matters, especially during COVID. I was excited to drop in and listen to some of those, just really talking about home ownership, refinancing, all different kinds of topics. And so today is no different. He is experiencing this. I'm excited. He is not only a friend of ours, but more importantly, he is a Georgia Bulldog fan. So, of course, I introduce to y'all Damian Carson.
All
Hey,
right. Hey,
Damian.
Lady Pam, how you doing?
I'm good. I had to sneak that in there for all Alabama fans. So
I, I know, right? So hopefully they'll continue to
I
tune in,
know.
because look, we're talking about winning, and Alabama has won enough. So,
Right.
yeah, has won enough. But it's always good to catch up with you and Pastor
Yeah.
Mason and the family, and you all have definitely an extended family, if you will. And anytime I get a chance to come and chop it up with you or Pastor Mason, I'm always here. Pastor Mason spoke a word in my life that I never forget. And so when he's, doing his wellness checks, if you will, so,
Uh-huh.
he asked me, he said, "Are you still in the wheelbarrow?"
Uh-huh.
And it's good because the first time he asked me, was I in the wheelbarrow? And so, we were
Uh-huh.
able to break it down and such. And so that's just been something really foundational in me and how I pay it forward, and talk to other, folks that comes across my life. And so
Yeah.
it's an honor and privilege to be here with you. And so I know you talked about Our Money Matters.
Yeah.
It really popped off during COVID, where a lot of people was at home and didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a chance to really get out much. And it was something that was on my heart. You know it from me teaching financial peace and some other services, which was in line with my background in consumer economics. And what I realized, it was just so much information out there. And so
Right.
I had reached out to one of my other pastor friends in Raleigh, North Carolina, and said, I just want to build community, right, in a place to where people can come and just get some real practical information
Mm-hmm.
about money. And I like the way you talk about winning
Mm-hmm.
there, because I really feel it was a purpose for me to pay it forward,
Yeah.
right, and just share some of the knowledge and information, because I'm thankful for studying consumer economics at the University of Georgia and graduating and then doing an internship at a financial firm. And Lady Pam, I don't know if I would be in a position financially, of course, with Jesus on my side, but also doing that internship.
Mm-hmm.
And in that internship, it was light bulbs that went off in my head. that I would never forget. And part of that was just understanding investing, and just understanding the market, realizing as we sort of jump in a little bit, you're going to have ebbs and flows,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you're going to have highs and lows. And that's one of the things to realize if I'm thinking about investing, I have to know what that journey is going to look like or what that ride's going to look like. And
Right.
one of the key things that we often looked at and what I was taught is that we want to look at it over a 10-year period,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's just basically a rule of thumb. And
Mm-hmm.
basically what you're looking at is how has that company performed that you're thinking about investing. And investing is simply making your money grow,
Mm-hmm.
right? I believe, that's what God tells to be stewards, right? And so he said at least put it in the bank. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, with that is just understanding it's a long-term strategy for me and in order for my money to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
so oftentimes as people not understanding, right? I remember growing up, we was talking a little bit about credit cards and sometimes like, oh, credit cards are bad, it's of the enemy and so on and so forth. I believe my people just didn't know what credit cards were, and
Right.
they saw a lot of people get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I correlate that the same thing with investing. Like many people don't really understand what it is, and they've seen some people get in trouble, which you can from the standpoint of taking on too much risk, right?
Right.
Or trying to time the market versus the time in the market. So
Yeah.
not timing it, meaning that I'm going to try to get in and time it and speculate, but
Mm-hmm.
it's my time in the market over that 10-year time frame. And so there's charts and things that I often share. I just made a post the other day, like especially for the Apple iPhone users. If
Mm-hmm.
you look at the app, the stock app,
Mm-hmm.
you can look at any company and it's going to show a 1 year, three
That's
year,
right.
5 year, 10 year. And then if the company's been along longer than 10 years, all the years,
Yeah.
just to get an idea. And the majority of the stocks, if you take a look at that just to see, over that 10-year time frame, it actually increases
Mm-hmm.
and it goes up. Now it's going to teeter and go down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but you can rest, assured that it's eventually going to go up. And so one of the ways you can, have an understanding or balance that, oftentimes, if we're talking about investing in stock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because and maybe if it goes down, is you can minimize some of that risk by also investing in bonds, right? So bonds is just a safer way of money that you actually lend to the government, right,
Mm-hmm.
to do work, but it'll help balance out that portfolio of what's going on. So if stocks happen to drop, bonds tend to go up a little bit and it's going to balance it out, right? So almost being on a seesaw, like you got to have something that's going to be able to balance it out. And so those some things on a high level there as it relates to investing and what I'm looking at. So I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket, and we basically just call that diversifying,
That's right.
right? Diversifying. And so, the thing that I often tell people, when you take a look at that, you can sort of see, right,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen, so you can have an idea, not necessarily to predict it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more of a crock pot mentality over that
Mm-hmm.
10-year time frame. And I was just looking at my portfolio for this year. It's down tremendously,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not over here. I know those grades, came during COVID. It's not because the market's down, because that's the ebbs and flows that we talk about,
That's right.
right? And I'm not trying to, get access to those funds like tomorrow. God forbid I live many more years,
Right.
right? And so it's the long game for me, because we was in this place back in the housing crisis in 2008
Mm-hmm.
when everything went down and then everything came back up. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing with COVID, as we saw some drops and then things started to come back up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of those ebbs and flows, right? And so just understanding that, and that's part of the process. So it gives me something to project out versus just getting in with no idea, no strategy, and I'm moving blind
Yeah. And
there.
then Damon, let me ask you this. So when you look at from an investor standpoint, when you look at what's going on in the world, in the economy, what stands out to you as far as something that you should invest in? And so you're right, because I'll do that. Like my husband will say something about a stock, and I said, okay, let me look on Stash and see how it's trending in 10 years. And some of it may be all the way down. I'm like, I don't know if I want to get that one, James. Let's look at something else. But how else do you look at, and I'm a news kind of person. I probably watch news a little too much. But sometimes, when they say certain things, I'm like, let me go look that up and see, Netflix, there's something negative came out about that. And that's okay. So how do you pick your stocks?
Right. That's a good question. And, one of the ways that, especially from the beginners out there, right?
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
I don't want you to think about, and this is just investor education, not giving out investment advice,
Right.
just to put that disclaimer out there. But
Yes.
I want you to look at what's called mutual funds,
Okay.
right? And the reason I say that is that it's going to help minimize the risk, right? It's almost like starting to ride a bike. You have training wheels in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And training wheels are good to keep you on the road, to keep you from falling over, right? To keep
Mm-hmm.
you safe. Those mutual funds, if you think about that in this investing space, is going to be that for you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the mutual fund, to also break it down a little bit more, is like if you was to go to a restaurant and order a number one, right? It's going to come with 4 or 5 different items already pre-packaged.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that mutual fund is going to allow you to do, right? And so when you
Mm-hmm.
think about, well, where do I go to get the mutual fund, right? So we know where to go to get a number one or number two. It's the same thing, and those are just different restaurants. When you mention Stash, right? We could
Uh-huh.
talk about Vanguard, Fidelity,
Right.
Acorn, so on and so forth. Those are the different restaurants, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
going to have a hamburger, but they may just cook them a little bit different in a sense.
Right.
So that's what it is with the mutual fund. So don't allow the noise, and I'm just trying to simplify it to know. So if you shop at Publix, go to Publix, right? If you shop at, Aldi's or whatever, if you go, that's fine. And you can still typically find that same thing, whether you at Vanguard, Fidelity, Publix,
Mm-hmm.
Aldi, and the same thing as it relates to those mutual funds and what you're looking to purchase. So within those mutual funds, it's going to give a prospectus, right? So there's a little research involved in this, right? Just to sort of see what's going on. That prospectus is going to let you see which companies are you investing in and
Mm-hmm.
what percentage of that company is going to be within this mutual fund,
Gotcha.
right? And
Yeah.
so what I do and what I've done when I started was I was in the sporting goods industry,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would suggest that anybody, and we're really being practical and get some wins, is what industry you may work in or familiar with.
Okay.
Look and get involved with those type of companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're familiar with that space. There's a not so much of a learning curve for
Mm-hmm.
you if you're trying to invest outside of that industry in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, right? And so that would be, one way to look at it. So when I was working at Nike, I was able to get, stock purchase plan is one way, but then also they had those mutual funds that can be part of a 401k, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you typically would invest in at a workplace or a 403b. But then also if you have a Roth or a traditional IRA, those are all mutual funds. Just you get the 401k from work, you get the IRA typically from the bank, the same type of thing. And so that prospectus is going to allow you to see what are you investing in within those particular companies and markets,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that mutual fund may have some bonds already in the mutual fund, right? The mutual fund is definitely going to have some stocks. So is it going to be 50% stock, 50% bonds,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is going to vary at the end of the day. And then the other thing, Pam, that you want to look at is what's the rate of return. So if I'm looking over 10 years, what's the average rate of return? So I know, regardless of how long this company's been around, at the end of 10 years, this is my average rate of return. And most charts will show like a 7% rate of return, but you can get, 8%, 8 to 10% rate of return is doing okay, right? As it relates to invested in that mutual fund, right? And so that's how you can sort of project out to see what's going to happen, right? Because some years you may have 25, 30%, right? But then it may be down 30% one year. But at the end of the day, in 10 years, the average rate of return is going to be, typically what you're looking at around 8 to 10%.
Okay. And then when you talk about mutual funds, because I guess my first thought was if it's an energy, let's say it's a gas mutual fund. So in that mutual fund, it would have like Exxon, Chevron, BP. Is that what you also mean by mutual fund as well?
I
Or
do.
something
So
else?
yeah, you bring up a good point. So you can have a mutual fund and be diversified within the industry,
Yeah.
like you just talked about, or it may be called
Okay.
a sector. So I
Okay.
can have a mutual fund that's focused on the energy sector.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing you can do from a diversification, you say, well, I may want to invest in the energy sector, technology sector, and retail
Yeah.
sector,
Yeah.
right? Because they're all different sectors. So
Right.
now you have a mutual fund that's going to have a little bit of energy, it's
Yeah.
going to have a little bit of technology,
Right.
right? And then it's going to have a little bit of, say, medical or retail, if
Yeah.
you will. That right there to me is my preference,
Okay.
right? Because one of the things that COVID taught us is if one sector's up, another sector's going to be down, and it creates that balance that we talk about and that diversification.
Mm-hmm.
So during COVID, technology stocks
Oh,
was skyrocketed,
yes.
skyrocketed. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
It's
and it's supply and demand.
right.
Right. So I realized, okay, technology, this is what's going on within the company because it drives demand. People are buying it, which is going to drive that price point up.
Yeah.
Well, we know retail stocks typically plummeted because
Mm-hmm.
people weren't going to shop too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, people were going to Amazon, which was
Oh yeah.
a unicorn in that retail space, but people weren't going to those stores,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
it's important to know that because if somebody had a retail sector mutual fund, they were down quite a bit during
Mm-hmm.
COVID because
Mm-hmm.
nothing was in that mutual fund that can cause a balance there,
Yeah.
right? So so my rule of thumb, if I'm looking at the mutual fund, I'm looking at what sectors is that mutual fund investing in,
Okay.
right? So that way I can really diversify at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. So you can look at doing a mutual fund from a sector and having different companies like Exxon that you talked about,
Mm-hmm.
or I can get a mutual fund that has various sectors represented within that particular mutual fund.
Mm-hmm.
And that's key to know.
Yeah, that's good. Now let me ask you for the beginner, and we talked about stash. I learned about stash, Robinhood, and Acorns from you when you did the Healthy Movement Challenge call for us years ago. So I kind of use that as a base, but is there any other avenues that people have, let's just say, I just really want somebody to kind of guide me along with what I'm doing. Or, you mentioned Fidelity. What avenues would you recommend for beginners to start in?
Gotcha. I definitely represent would recommend the mutual fund route.
The mutual fund.
So
Okay.
typically, if you at a workplace and they offer a 401k
Okay.
or 403b, you
Yeah.
got to start there. You
Okay.
that's your starting point. Now, this is taking into account that you paid down some consumer debt,
Right.
right? You able to have some savings accumulated, and then we're talking about getting to investing, right?
Mhm.
But with that 401k, you want to be able to do that simultaneously. Most
Simultaneous.
companies are going to match it, whether it's 50 cent on a dollar or dollar for dollar for the first X amount of percent that you invest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already 100% rate of return on your money.
Mm-hmm.
Like they giving you free money. And the fact of the matter is a lot of individuals aren't taking advantage of that. right, with the companies that they work with, you are leaving money on the table. So that's going to be the first thing to do. And what I want to try to do is max out how much ever I can contribute to that 401k, whether that's pre-tax or after tax, right? That's what we want to do. And so you can go to your HR department, they're going to give you, and they're going to be able to provide a prospectus, right? That's going to show you those funds that we just talked about, right? What's the average rate of return? I want to do that, and I'm going to continue to do that all the time, because the other piece is just the consistency behind it.
Right.
So every month, right, it's going to be an automatic withdrawal into that 401k, period. Because here's the thing, we all like to get stuff on sale, right? So as those companies go down, you're able to buy more at a lower price. So you don't want to stop contributing and by that purchasing mutual funds and stocks as it relates to your 401k or your 403b or any type of retirement account. Once you're able to max that out, right, then you would want to look at if you're able to contribute to a Roth IRA, right? Then I can go to the financial firm, or you can use Fidelity or Vanguard and create a Roth IRA, right? It's the same thing as the 401k. Now I'm going to start investing in that Roth IRA, right? Or a traditional IRA based off of the income limits there, right? Because once you make a certain amount of money, you can't invest in either of them. So you want to go ahead and do that, especially in your early ages of earning, so you can have that money just stashed away. And you're doing that every month, every month. I was looking at a report before we got on here. If someone was to take $100 a month and invest it over, 40 years at an average rate of return of only 7%, they would have right at like 330 something thousand dollars in 40 years. That's $100 a month.
Wow.
That's it, $100.
Yeah.
I mean, we can find $100 a month.
Sure can.
At the end of the day. And so we want to win, but that may be where somebody starts, and that's totally fine. But you have to start there, right? Then the next thing that I say, and the reason I talked about investing in individual stocks is because a lot of folks are consumers. At the end of the day, we buying this stuff anyway.
Right.
So it was just changing our mentality versus me buying the liability and the product itself. Let me buy it in the form of an asset,
Right.
right? And then that way you can do the individual stock, because it is so risky, right? Because you really don't have much diversification there, right? And so you want to have a nest egg that you're able to build, right? And you could have some, play money in a sense that you may want to invest with in a sense, so there's processes and levels to it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I get that, because then if you're going through your job, then that's more sure, that's more stable. But then, if you want to do the side investment, then that's okay. You can, throw a little change in there, but no, so I get that. So that's diversifying. Let me ask you, what about our people who are self-employed? Our business owners, they don't have, the job to actually fund their 401k. How should they start? Should they go to Regions and say, hey, I need a Roth IRA? What should they do?
Right. So what they can do, they can definitely go to any financial institution. Right. I know, like State Farm even offers it, right? But any financial institution, and those, financial institutions, to think about like the grocery store analogy that I gave earlier, right? One grocery store may not have what you're looking for in a sense, but you want to sort of shop around and see what they're offering. So any financial institution can open up what's called a SEP IRA, which is a self-employed pension IRA. It's the 401k, it's the 403b IRA. They just give all these acronyms that can be confusing.
Right.
It's a self-employed pension IRA. So you would have the prospectus, You're gonna look at it over average of 10 years to see what the rate of return is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because uh, all mutual funds aren't equal, meaning that some of the mutual funds that I invest in have been around for 60 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a track record.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? So I can
Uh-huh.
understand to know, hey, this thing has been performing over 60 years at this particular rate of return. That's
Right.
pretty solid, right? Versus looking at something that's only been here for a year, 2 or 3 years, you really don't know what that mutual fund is going to do and how it's going to perform, right? And typically, some of those newer mutual funds are going to be new companies that's coming to the market,
Yeah.
right? So some of those new companies may do well, some of those new companies may not do
Right.
well, right? And then the other thing to keep in mind, Lady Pam, you said something earlier about Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix rocked a lot of people, a lot of folks' world,
Yeah.
right? And that's a prime example of how something can go south real quick,
You ain't lying.
right? Which is
Right.
important to have diversification in a mutual fund
Right.
because
Exactly.
stuff like that happens, you
Yeah.
know. But would it lessen the blow if I also had Costco within that mutual fund, right? A stock
Right.
that continues to perform well even now in the midst of what we dealing with.
Yeah.
Go to Costco any time of the day. It is packed.
Man, who you telling?
Yeah, packed.
I don't
And
even go.
yeah,
It's just that
gas
packed.
around the police out there policing the gas. You see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And so I have to be able to look at it. But I give you one, Pam, because some people say, well, when do I sell if I do it on individual stocks?
Right.
You have to understand what's going on in the marketplace. One of the reasons Netflix is more of it's a technology company skyrocketed because people weren't going to the movies,
Right.
right? People, you don't have to wear a mask to get on the airplane no more,
That's right.
right? People not wearing masks, period. People getting out. So if
Mhm.
people starting to get out, then they're not going to be subscribing to watch Netflix at the house,
That's right.
right? So their subscription goes down because that's their business model.
Right.
So it was just a matter of time when they projected out every quarter, they project their sales, right?
Hmm.
To see how they did, that it was going to be reflective of what it was reflective of. The same thing with Peloton, right? People working out at home, right?
Oh,
The bike.
yeah.
Now people going to the gym.
Damn,
Peloton
yeah.
has some supplier issues and stuff,
That's right.
and such. And then you got to realize sometimes you're gonna take some L's.
Yeah.
We talking about winning, which is long term, but
Right.
sometimes I'm gonna have to take a loss,
That's right.
right? And
Yeah.
so, that's part of it, and it happens because um, you just never know what that CEO may do, Papa John's,
Right.
and say
Yeah.
something
Is it
sideways,
something crazy? Right.
some craziness that happened from that perspective, um, or whatnot, and just how those technology stocks went up, Zoom and stuff. People
Right.
meet in person now. That's not
Way back
necessarily
down.
for Zoom like
Yeah.
it once was.
That's
So that
right.
would be an indication if I have more of a seasonal type of investment,
Right.
then I need to go ahead and sell it before we allow it to drop.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But now other companies, you really can't determine it like that so much,
Mm-hmm.
right? So say like Apple or Tesla, those are companies typically that people are going to be buying day in and day out. It's not so
Mm-hmm.
much of a seasonal type of a company, if you will, but you still want to be able to read the reports and see
Right.
what's going on with the supplier channels and things of that nature. So you definitely want to also be able to read and just know what's going on. And so
Right.
that's why I said if it's within that market, then typically you're going to be more excited to read about it and understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, that's good. And when you mentioned about, the someone who's self-employed, I'm gonna go back to that one. To go to institutions and kind of see what their rates are. So basically you're going to different banks, just seeing what their rate of return is for their for their self-employed pension, right? Is that kind of what I'm shopping for?
Yeah, you could from that perspective, or say if you bank at a certain bank, you may just go there and be done with it, right, at the end of the
Yeah,
day, because
gotcha.
those rate of returns are going to be similar in some cases based off whatever their mutual fund is
Yes,
and how
okay.
it performs. And so the other thing people say, well, how much money do you have? Right? Each mutual fund that you look to purchase is going to have how much you need to have before you can invest in that particular
Send to
mutual,
it. Gotcha.
right? And so you can get a fractional share of a mutual fund, right? You
Yeah,
can actually go to Cash App,
yeah.
right? Whether it's a mutual fund, index fund, or exchange rate funds, they're all mutual funds,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's going to have companies already prepackaged in this fund that you can actually purchase. And you can buy fractional shares of,
Right.
those mutual funds, if you will.
Yeah,
And so, when you take a look at it, on some of those that have a stronger rate of return may require you to have more money to actually purchase it. You
yeah,
see what I'm saying? So you can
yeah.
determine it from that perspective. But anywhere from a fractional share, meaning I don't have enough to buy a whole share of
Right.
that particular mutual fund or a whole share of that particular individual stock, then I can get a fractional share. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those who may not be in position, I hope this is encouraging folks to say, hey, let me get my budget right. As y'all had the lady come on and talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get my consumer debt paid down.
That's it.
Right. Because one of the things that I tell folks is like, man, you paying 18 and 27% interest. That's what you pay out.
Right.
We'll pay that out, but we won't invest to get 8 to 10%.
10%, right.
We're talking about being able to invest to get half of what you paying out
Right.
on a freaking minimum payment a lot of
Yeah.
the times.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
free that out, get off from under that debt, so I can have more money, so I can get
Yes.
8 to 10 and maybe
Right.
12% interest on the return.
Yeah.
That ought to make some people mad if we think about it. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to charge me 18 and 27%,
Mm-hmm. On the credit
but I'm
card.
only going to be able to, comfortably get about 8 to 12%
Mm-hmm.
on my investment.
Mm-hmm.
But you have me to, we ain't talking about all that. We talking about investing in winners. I
No,
wanted
that's
to try to
good.
sit
Yeah.
in because we don't think about it when we're making the minimum payments,
Right.
right? And if you look at that credit card transaction, if you're there, and it shows if you make this minimum payment, you're going to be paying that for over 40 something years,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just said if you invest $100 a month
Mm-hmm.
over 40 years at a 7% rate of return, only 7%. That's over 300 and something $1,000. Google that. Those
Right.
are facts. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I get excited, because if I can do 100, what would $200 look like? Right? How can I cut that down and get that money before 40 years? I want it in 20,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why I'm gonna look at my spending plan and see, okay, let me put in more. And then if the company's gonna match it,
Mm-hmm.
so if they're gonna match 5% and I'm putting in 5, that's an automatic, that's 10%.
Yeah. Yep.
Just all right there. I mean, it's free money, and it just baffles me. But a lot of people just don't know or don't think about it right from that perspective. And so I got carried away a little bit. But
No,
you
that's
know, those,
fine.
yeah, those are the behaviors and changes that we have to think about and make on a regular basis. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
yeah.
And Damien, along that line, I really want you to just talk to people why it is so important to invest, because you're right. We had the lady come on earlier this month to talk about budgeting. She did a phenomenal job. And she said she did with a client who she just had to stop working with them because they couldn't understand. They wanted to continue to pay $400 for sewing, for weave, and this lady was not willing to give that up. And so we talked about how, you have to sacrifice now so that you can enjoy later. So talk to our audience about just why it is so important to invest, what it looks like in the long haul.
Yeah, it's so important to invest, and 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 here's the thing. That's why I talk about the fractional shares, and
Mm-hmm.
the Bible talks about don't despise small beginnings,
Right.
right? Uh, it, so for me, and what that looked like, and how, and I always said, I said, April, I do not want an Apple phone, and this was probably 12 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I'm just gonna buy. At the time, I think I could get 3 shares of Apple stock. That's it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want no phone. So if it's a item that I'm already purchasing,
Mm-hmm.
don't purchase it and buy that stock. Just do that one time. If you
Right.
don't do that, just do that. Maybe
Yeah.
you're not paid down the debt if you have it or whatever the case. Don't go get the new phone that comes out. Now I want you to, because we both own Apple stock now.
That's right.
We some shareholders and we can
That's
get a
right.
dividend. But you know what I'm saying. Um, and such and so it was just that simple on starting, right? And
Yeah.
then look at that chart to see over 10 years. What
Mm-hmm.
is that? What does that
Look
number
like.
do? It goes up.
Right.
It goes up, over 10 years, 9 times out of 10.
Mhm. And
And
then
so
that stock
there's
splits. If that
and
stock
then
splits,
so
yeah.
then there's benefits, right? So one is the dividend.
Uh-huh.
So I own part of the company. We talk about ownership. You can buy a share of Apple stock now and be an owner, and you can't buy no iPod earpods for that price. You dog show can't buy no Apple iPhone, but
Mm-mm.
I can buy a share a share and be an owner of the company. And then when everybody's rushing and Apple's a $1 trillion company right now, and they have a good quarter,
Uh-huh.
then I get up in that dividend. I get another check
Right.
based off how many shares that I have of that company.
Mm-hmm.
That's what wealth is. That's what success and entrepreneurship is at the end of the day. So
Mm-hmm.
while I'm sleeping,
That's
my
right.
phone going off because I done got a dividend check. All
Mm-hmm.
I bought was 3 shares of stock.
Mm-hmm.
It's paying hand over fist. And then once it gets to a certain price point, with some companies, they may offer a split,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at
Mm-hmm.
the time, Apple did a 12-to-1 split, 12-to-1. So now my 3 shares go to 36 shares.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Because now I got 36 shares. Now the price of it drops to equal out whatever that price point initially was when it splits. So now I got 36 shares that are grow to $800 or whatever the case may be. And right, and then during COVID or whatnot, they did I think it was a 4 or 5-to-1 split, right?
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
that was me just buying Apple stock one time, three
Uh-huh.
shares.
Uh-huh.
Now I still had it within my mutual fund, so it still gets some of that growth because you get dividends with the mutual funds too, Pam, Lady Pam, right? So as
Right.
those companies that I'm investing in does well, I
Mm-hmm.
get a dividend check. Now I reinvest it,
Right.
right? But if that's, do what you want, but I'm just saying,
Right.
you see, and so it's almost a no-brainer at the end of the day,
Amen.
right?
Yep.
To
Yep.
at least think about it, the industry that you're familiar with, or company or product that you purchase on a regular basis, and you say to yourself for this month, maybe whoever manufactures that weave or whatever the case may be, I'm going to do that instead of getting this done this month or
That's a
purchase.
good idea. That's a good idea, Damon.
Yeah, yeah. If it's if
Company
it's
that
a
manufactures.
if it's a publicly traded company, you would want to do
Right.
that. And so you get to sit on investor calls and make and vote about how the company's ran, right? If something's on the table to vote,
Mhm.
you get your voice is heard within that particular company. And so, now we hear about Google and Amazon
Mhm.
proposing a 20-to-1 split, right? Now, we don't know when that's going to take place,
Mm.
but that's something to put on my watch list,
Right.
Amazon and Google. And then when you scroll down at the bottom, you could read what's going on within that particular company, right? That have an
Right.
idea. And Tesla's talking about doing another
A
split,
split. Wow.
5-to-1 split, perhaps. So, that's what's one of the things that's on the table on the investor call. And so that dividend check will grow
Mm-hmm.
based off how many shares you own. But you also want to take a look. Not all companies pay a dividend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically, your older companies like a McDonald's, IBM, Procter Gamble, those companies tend to pay a higher dividend because their sales aren't going to continue to increase at such a faster rate as, say, another emerging company that's coming along,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
So Tesla and them may not pay dividends, and definitely not as much because the price point, you making money on the price point. Where if you look at Coca-Cola, Nike, those
Uh-huh.
companies continue to grow, but not at the rate that some of those other companies grow,
Okay.
right? So they would pay a higher dividend at the end of the day, typically. But
Okay.
all that stuff is a click away from Google to research it to see,
That's right.
right? And then folks can reach out on Our Money Matters on Facebook. I'm constantly saying, hey, ask me a question, let me know.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do, I hadn't charged anybody just to give the information. I just want to build that community and have a safe place,
Yeah.
because the fact of the matter, many people just don't know about it.
Yeah.
And we talk about the wealth gap; it's continuing to widen,
Yeah.
right? And as a Black community, we subject to have a negative net worth
That's right.
in the next 5 to 10 years,
That's right.
if you will. So, we talked a little bit more so about investing in stocks, but that could be in real estate, the homes nowadays. I'm telling you, man,
Yeah.
the prices of these homes
Yes.
is just crazy.
It's
Right?
really crazy. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, inflation, and that's another reason you want to invest to keep up with inflation.
Right.
I mean, inflation was like overall about 8% last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we paying that much more. So a dollar today versus last year is roughly 92 cents.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even a full dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just stuff that's chipping away at that dollar, and that's called inflation. So
Mm-hmm.
I at least have to put my money in a mutual fund and invest it to keep up
Yes.
with inflation, or
Exactly.
I'm losing money by not doing it because I can't buy as much. I don't
Right.
have as much buying power at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's how you ward off, if you will, the inflation phenomenon that we're all dealing with right now today.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
you think about that loaf of bread that you bought 30 years ago is not the same price it is today. And it's not going to be the same price 30 years from now. That loaf of bread is going to go up. And so you're right. In order to be able to afford that loaf of bread 30
Yeah,
years from now, you need to make sure that you have money set aside in mutual funds, in the 401k. My last question, I
uh-huh.
think, and we talked about this a little bit, and every now and then I get a friend request. It could be on Instagram, and I look at the person profile, and it's somebody who's in Bitcoin. And I was like, nope, I'm not accepting you.
Yeah,
But can,
yeah.
can you touch a little bit about cryptocurrency? A lot of people are, they're invested in that. Do you want to share anything about that? Not to say anything against the Bitcoin people, but cryptocurrency in general.
Cryptocurrency is real,
Uh-huh.
right? I remember almost 10 years ago and folks hitting me up about Bitcoin. And I'm thinking, man, Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin? I
Right,
think it was
right,
like $5 a share. Right. And
right.
Bitcoin is trading at like $38,000 a share right now.
Yeah, it
Right.
sure
And
is.
it almost hit like $50,000 a share. Um, with that, there's other companies within that crypto space,
Mm-hmm.
right? The challenge is almost, if you think about the technology boom of many, many, many years ago, some of those companies didn't make it, such as even BlackBerry,
Yeah,
perhaps Motorola,
that's right. Yeah.
right? And even before those companies, it was some other companies that we never heard of that just didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, there's not an indicator to say, hey, who's going to be the next Apple or the next technology company in that space, similar to the cryptocurrency piece. And so just if you know that, right,
Mhm.
and what you're getting into, and just realize you may lose it because
Right.
it is a higher risk,
Yeah.
right, than what we know of a stock, to be able to look at a prospectus and look at a 10-year average rate of return. You don't have that to go off of as it relates to the cryptocurrency, right? And so people may say Bitcoin, but they talking about cryptocurrency.
Right.
One of the things that I look for, just with me, and again being practical, is like crypto.com. I know they bought the rights to the Staples Center in LA. And if you watch basketball, either on the basketball goal or the court, it has crypto.com on it.
Hmm.
Right. And so now you get more athletes doing crypto
Hmm.
commercials and things of that
Right.
nature. So, that suggests to me that this is real. And when
Mhm.
you think about companies and like the Dallas Mavericks accept cryptocurrency as a form of payment. Even when you think about Tesla. So for me, I do directly invest in crypto. So let me say that. But it's not like I'm investing in some of the other things that we talk about,
Right.
right? And it's just like, hey, I don't want to miss out on it. So for me, it's
Yeah.
speculation
Yeah.
versus investing,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing from that perspective. And so, but knowing that crypto.com bought the purchasing rights, or the naming rights to the Staples Center.
Mhm.
It's on the basketball court, the basketball
Right.
goal, things
Huh.
of that nature. But then also, what I was going to say, Tesla on their balance sheet
Mhm.
owns quite a bit of Bitcoin,
Hmm.
right? So if you take a look at Elon Musk, the richest man in the world right now, and he just
Yeah.
got approval to purchase Twitter for like 40 something $billion.
Uh-huh.
Part of Tesla's balance sheet is Bitcoin,
Hmm.
right? Which actually drove Tesla's profits. So when you start to look at a company, it ain't the car so much that Tesla's making money off of. It was the Bitcoin that's on their balance sheet, as
Oh.
well as the emissions that they sell to Ford and some of these cars that's still using gas,
Mm.
right? That's how they make money at the end of the day. So that's the other part of your research, is how does a company make money? Like Disney is more than just Disney World. They
Oh
own
yeah.
ESPN, right? They own some other companies that make up Disney. So that's some diversification in itself within that one company, right? So when Disney World, Disneyland shut down, Disney, the company, was still making money. You,
Mhm.
even with PayPal, which is another uh, company that owns Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So
Mhm.
I indirectly invested in Bitcoin or crypto, and some of us probably done it and don't even realize it. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah. And
uh,
now Disney World trying to be their own world, aren't they?
yeah, trying to be the whole world of
Yeah.
money. So, that's the thing about it. Just, if you're going to get your big toe wet, so to speak, just looking at some major brands that own that as part of their portfolio.
Yeah.
So as those companies do well, you can project to do well, but just know if it goes down, it can affect your rate
Yes.
of return as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully, it could be simplified around crypto, and
Mhm.
what does it look like, and how is it created, and so on and so forth.
Right.
It's new, and like I said earlier, it's not a space that I'm familiar with. And so I
Right.
do pretty good where I'm at now. So with doing what I know, right,
Right.
practical within those areas, and just going from there. But
Yeah.
it's definitely worth taking a look.
Okay. Yeah, because I heard talk about, that I think by the end of this year, you can purchase items in Walmart using cryptocurrency. So it seemed like, it's trying to, weave itself into it could be in Publix or Kroger, who knows? But I was just curious about that. So okay, all right. So it's just a matter of doing your research, because it is a lot of cryptocurrencies out there.
Yeah,
Tron.
doing your research. And the other thing that's really brought it, it's not, some of it's not invested, right? So like Shiba and Dogecoin, right? Those are like the two other famous cryptocurrencies, if you will.
Okay.
And so really it was, folks saying, hey, let's drop this price point up. So it wasn't like it was tied to some type of product or service. It was folks manipulating the stock, which tends to happen,
Oh,
right? I know we didn't really talk about that now, but like GameStop, right?
yeah.
When it skyrocketed,
Uh-huh.
it was called a short squeeze. And I don't want to confuse anybody on here, but there is some manipulation of stocks with these huge hedge fund companies,
Mm,
right? That would put out information that can drive, some
uh,
stocks up or down. And
mhm,
it took some gamers who said, you know what, we're going to squeeze that stock,
mhm.
right? Because it's a term called options where you can invest in the company and you invest in saying that the stock's going to go down,
Yeah.
right?
The
Which
put option.
I don't.
The put option. Is that the
Yeah,
one?
yeah. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the hedge funds is putting out this information about GameStop driving the price point down because they making money.
Oh.
So those gamers was like, you know what? We're going to start buying it, and drove the price point up.
Oh.
Those hedge fund companies lost billions of dollars,
Ah.
right? So Robinhood halted being able to trade
That's right.
GameStop, which was like, come on, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
shouldn't be trying to short a stock like that.
Right.
So, every now and again you have something like that happen, but it shouldn't deter you from it, looking at what we talked about, so you can have that diversification built in,
Yeah.
to where it's a short, or a CEO saying something that's crazy, or
Right.
a market that goes bad like we saw with Netflix,
Yeah.
right? And then people panicking, even driving the price point down even further,
Yeah.
or whatnot. So I mean, we could go on and on and on about some of the things that can happen, but in the long haul, as we talk about the time in the market and not the timing of the market,
That's right. 10
uh,
years.
yeah, I just, based off what the Dow and the research shows, we're gonna be in better positions to be able to do more,
Right.
right, and give more and serve more and reach more people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So people all over the world can hear us on the broadcast, if you will, or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just a purpose and a reason for it, at the end of the day. And so we just have to be wise about it, seek counsel, you know what I'm saying, and
That's
just and do
right.
your research on it. But if you
Yeah.
do the 401k, go to your company, understand that, right? And then, like I said, the Roth IRA or the traditional, if you can invest in that when you go to the bank, pay down that consumer debt. We paying out 18 and 27%. That we know, so we can make that money work for us,
Yeah.
right? At
That's
least
right.
get 7 to 8% rate of return,
That's right.
over the long haul. $100 invested over the next 40 years at a 7% rate of return,
Uh-huh.
390 some $1,000.
Yep. No brainer.
No brainer. No brainer. We just have to be patient, and before you know it, like 10 years will be here. Well and
Right.
done.
Man, 10 years fly by fast.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
20 years, millionaire. What?
Yeah.
We don't have to wait 40. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. Because people so often, well, how much percentage of my income should I invest? Don't stop at 10%. Don't stop at 15.
Right.
Go 20, 25. Keep
Yeah.
your overhead low. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
if I'm investing 20 and 25% of my income, and it's doable, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to challenge us. Do I have to have a car note? Right? Do I have
Right.
to do some of those things at the end of the
Right.
day? Or do I really want to live like no one else now,
Right.
so I can live like no one else in the future?
That's right.
Right? That's life.
Yeah.
That's living at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I challenge, don't stop at 10. No, bump that.
Yeah.
No, go 20, 25%.
Yeah.
And it's doable. But you may have to start at doing 5 and then over the next 2 years and increase to 10, then increase it to 15 to 20 to 25.
Yeah.
That's what it's about at the end of the day. So
Yeah. Awesome. But Damon, the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, and you have given us some knowledge on today. So listen, of course, we appreciate you. Are you still doing Money Matters? I'm trying to see how people can follow you. I hadn't seen as much, but I'm not on Facebook all the time. So I don't know if you've been putting anything out there.
I haven't done anything live in about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, once I thought COVID was opening up or
Uh-huh.
settling down and people getting out as much, I didn't do it. But it's opened up doors for me to, be on this
Okay.
webinar and do some other things. But I want to get
Okay.
back to it. With it being Financial Literacy Month, maybe we'll kick it back off in May,
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I feed off the people's energy on inboxing me. And so
Yeah.
that also
Okay.
slowed down a little bit too.
Yeah.
So I was just, servicing out of a need that I
I
felt,
gotcha.
but I need to
Okay.
get it back rolling and some other things to be able to help people out. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Mm.
Okay. So if people have any questions, if they want to contact you, they can inbox you. That'd be
Yeah,
a good start.
Our Money Matters, the
How money
Facebook
matters.
page, yeah, and sometimes I post on there, like I post a picture of a dividend coming through,
Yeah.
and it ain't to brag or nothing. It's to like, hey, take a look at this, see what this is.
Right. Right.
A picture of a chart over 10 years that started out here and then over 10 years is
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
right? And these are just in sectors and industries that you're familiar with,
Yeah.
right? And so I tapped into my wife, her industry within the health field to see, hey, what do you know in that space?
I know that's
And
right.
that's really taken off, like Moderna and
Yes.
Pfizer.
The
Those are
Pfizer.
publicly traded
Yes.
companies. So once I
Yes.
knew those drugs were approved,
That's
let
right.
me go buy it. Everybody got to get COVID shots.
And
Typically,
they
at least they should,
gonna keep getting them
and they're gonna keep getting them.
for 10
Right?
years
And
at least.
CPS and some other, and that's
Yes.
just how I think within that
That's
field
right.
of that market, like
Yeah.
demand. And even right now, as us coming out, people starting to get on cruise lines. Those are
That's
publicly traded
right.
companies. People traveling Delta. Come on now.
Yes, yes.
I
I
mean,
just told
all
my
it's
husband that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, about Delta.
hotels. People supply and demand is
That's right.
opening up. So I really believe if people get in position, Lady Pam, and do some of the things that we talked about in the
Yeah,
next 4 or 5 years, that their life financially is going to look totally different. God
that's
forbid any other type of coronavirus or something like that come along.
right,
But
right.
even in that long term,
Long term.
you're gonna win.
That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
So
thank you so much, Damien. I know I've held you long enough. I can keep talking about this for a
I
minute,
know
but
you
I'm
you
not.
look at I hadn't seen you in a while to say go
But let me look
dog.
at the
So
clock.
we should have won our national championship stuff.
Oh, we're gonna do that next time.
Yeah, we gotta
Have
do it
you on
again.
again.
Yeah, definitely. So it was awesome to be on here and thank you
Yeah. And
again.
thank you for joining us. Thank you for your words of wisdom. Of course, Facebook fam, YouTube, Instagram, all the ways y'all watch us. Thank y'all for watching this. Make sure you share this with someone. Go back and rewind, take some good notes, reach out to Damien. You can inbox him on Our Money Matters on Facebook. And so reach out to him so that we can all win, we can all grow. But don't forget, sometimes we got to take some L's, got to take some losses. Research, of course, if your job is doing anything, make sure you match that. He gave us some really good pointers, some really good tips. So, of course, it's our desire to always educate you, to inform you, and to encourage you here on this segment, to keep going, keep pushing. Don't stop. If your stock didn't do well, hold on to it. Maybe you got to hold on to it, maybe so, and then wait it out for about 10 years. But that's what we want to do. Just kind of encourage you to do better, to be better. So thank y'all for joining us here on today. Spread the word, share this broadcast with someone that you know. And thank you so much, Damian, for having us, for being here on with us today. And blessings to you and your family, and everybody connected to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you too as well.
Okay, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Take care.